and welcome to the Sheroes Collective podcast. I'm your host, Renee Sparks, and as usual, I am bringing you an amazing Shero that's going to talk us through her specialty. The wonderful person I get to introduce today is Celita Begbie. She's an independent consultant focusing on people and culture strategy. So, I mean, that's really broad. So we're hoping we're going to get to unpack that a little bit. Celita is passionate about employee-centric business transformation. I love that. I stopped at business and wanting to say transformation because we've been speaking about transformation for ever and a day. So I can't wait to get into that. She's experienced in the design and execution of people strategy and provides strategic direction to really big people, CEOs, managing directors, and heads of business in global enterprises across various industries. So that's really, really amazing. And so it's amazing to just be celebrating you. Your areas of specialty include business transformation, as we've spoken about earlier, organization design and development, leader empowerment, like seriously, organization effectiveness, culture transformation, remote leadership, employee engagement, talent management, and leadership in performance and change. That is a mouthful, but it is, I couldn't leave any of it out. So welcome, Celita. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much for the opportunity, and thank you for having me on this show.
No, it's fantastic having you here. So I'm going to immediately kick into what the questions are that really started burning when I looked at your profile and engaged with you a little bit more. Your LinkedIn profile says it so eloquently, and I literally said it in your introduction, an independent consultant, people and culture strategy. It makes me think of leadership and change management, but what has been your biggest lesson as a practitioner in this space?
I think the biggest lesson is that whether the company or the business or the organization is big, if it's 30,000 employees, whether it's sort of medium-sized 3,000, or whether it's a small business of 5 people, what is important is to look at your people strategy. And the people strategy has to be aligned with what your organization strategy is. What is your dream for your business, for your organization? What is it that you want to achieve? And then you need to make sure that your organization is set up to achieve that. So that is my biggest lesson. It's not just one thing. It's not just recruitment or how good your leaders are. It's all encompassing. It's talent acquisition. It is how you manage your talent, how you develop your talent, how you lead your leaders to lead. It's all about how do you ensure that your organization is successful? So whether it's a non-profit, whether it's a profit organization, regardless, at the end of the day, you want your organization to be successful, right? And to actually achieve what it is that you set out to achieve. So that means that you need to then look at all the elements that make up that success story that you want to achieve. So that for me, I think, is the biggest lesson.
That is incredible. Can I just step in, because there was something you said about the strategy. Must it be documented? Because I've worked in many civil society spaces. I come across many solopreneurs that want to take on these big dreams, but very often we don't write it, and we don't. So is that like a starting point, or can we just wing it and see how it goes? I don't know.
No, well, you see, the problem is that if it's in your head, it might be clearly articulated in your head, but the people in your organization, the people that you work with, your stakeholders, do they know what's in your head? So how will they know if you don't write it down and publish it? So, yeah. So when I say write it down, I don't mean write it in your notebook on your desk. You need to be clear as to what is your purpose, what is the organization's purpose, and then what is the strategy and how are we going to achieve that? And then everybody needs to know what that is. Right down to the lowest level employee. Everybody in between needs to understand what the strategy is, and everything that you do is aligned with that strategy and that purpose. Yeah.
Thank you very much for that. I'm just thinking, as you're speaking about leadership and change management and the importance of documenting. I mean, I'm also thinking about when you're taking people through a process of change or starting to write those documents. At what point do you bring people in? I mean, in your experience, is there a golden solution here, or is it just a matter of kind of feel your way and then determine when to do it? Or do we contact someone like yourself to kind of guide us through those processes?
Yes, look, I think what is important is that it is collectively designed, because you have individuals in your organization or your partners who have thoughts, they have areas of expertise that you might not have, and it's important to get the ideas and to get the input. So when you are thinking about the strategy, so I mean, if you are a solopreneur, then it's just yourself, but you have connections, you have networks, you have mentors, coaches, friends in other industries or other professions that you can talk to, and then make it a collective effort and a collaborative effort to decide on what your strategy is. And yes, you can bring in an expert to help you guide. That will definitely help as well. But it is important that you don't do this completely on your own. Let it be a collective effort. I was reading a book on the brain, and it's talking about neural pathways and how you create neural pathways within your own brain. And then I thought, but there are other brains, that you can actually create those neural pathways to connect, people outside of yourself. Like I said, you have a certain area of expertise, and there are things that you don't know, that you're not good at. You might not be good at finances. You might not be good at marketing or IT, and talk to people in those areas of expertise, and that's how you then put together what your strategy is. So then you would have thought of everything, because it's a collective thought of everything.
Exactly.
That is relevant. And yes, definitely write it down. But write it down and publish it.
Okay. No, thank you very much for that. I think it's something we often just assume maybe it's only for big organizations, etc. That's why the tapping into that. But then also, through your experience, what are the similarities that you've come across in terms of public, private, civil society spaces, specifically in your area of expertise, so around people management, strategy, culture, leadership? Yeah.
So I haven't found many differences.
Oh, wow.
I have not found many differences. There are organizations where most of the individuals in that organization are highly educated, highly specialized, real specialists, real gurus, very intelligent people. And then there are organizations where, educational levels are very low. Some might even be completely illiterate. And, in all of these organizations that are male-dominated, women-dominated, like I said, big organizations, small, for-profits, non-profits, I actually don't see many differences. You have you still need to decide on what the culture is that you want to have in your organization. As I said, you need to have the strategy. The culture needs to be aligned with the strategy. The way that your organization is designed needs to be designed to achieve your strategy. In terms of leadership, you have fantastic leaders in all of these different types of organizations, and you have bad leaders in all of these different types of organizations. You have bullying, you have harassment, you have just micromanaging and just making people feel bad. And equally, you have people who inspire and motivate and really lead lead the team towards achieving a common goal. So yeah, I haven't seen any differences.
Okay.
Because I moved from the factory environment into financial services, and people would say, "Oh, it's very different," and I'm like, "No, I don't really." the same challenges that I found, and I think it's across the globe, in fact. I think that as South Africans, we tend to think that we are the only ones with problems, but I think human beings are human beings no matter where they are. And yes, there are national cultures, ethnic cultures that come into play, but at the end of the day, you need to think very carefully and carefully consider what it is that you want in your organization in terms of type of leadership style, type of culture, capabilities, competencies in your organization, no matter what organization it is.
Okay, thank you so much for that. Now, we are speaking endlessly about leadership, change, and culture, but you've not always been in the space, right? So you, when I checked out who Celita is, your foundation is actually in human ecology and food science. So how did you get here? How did you manage to make that transition?
Yes, so I started out as a food technologist, baking cakes and breads all day, testing the products, developing new products, which I thoroughly enjoyed. But when I was in that industry, there was a need to teach consumers how to bake and to bake well. There were many consumers who were baking, to generate an income for themselves. So I did quite a lot of work with home bakers, feed cook dens, people that remember we had home industries back in the day. People would bake rusks and sell them and things like that. So it was all about training how to bake successfully, but then also how to run a business and actually generate an income for yourself. So at that time, and I'm giving away my age now, I guess, because then the legislation came into being, the skills development legislation. And with that was the establishment of the CETAs and the creation of unit standards and being part of the standards generation bodies. So I was quite involved with that and creating workplace learnerships and skills programs for the baking industry. And then, of course, we had our employment equity legislation coming into being. And businesses didn't know what to do with this new legislation. And I was very fortunate at the time to be appointed at the company that I was working at, moving from the consumer marketing of bakery ingredients to training and development of the organization. Because the organization didn't know, nobody knew, how to really implement employment equity and skills development. It was something new to all of us. So that is how I got into training and development and change management, because the business needed to change. The business needed to change in terms of the employment equity practices, in the skills development. And then from there realize that you cannot focus on employment equity and skills development on its own. You need to look broader and look at what is then your people strategy, so from acquiring talent, developing talent, employee relations, and performance management, and that's how I actually made the career switch from food technology and consumer marketing to training and development, and then HR. So and that's and in terms of that transition, I needed to learn more about what HR is all about, and then I started off with the postgrad diploma in business management to really understand the business, and then from there later did my master's in leadership in performance and change. So that is how I made the transition.
Incredible. Yeah, and I've seen you've done your courses in terms of your education. It's been at different universities throughout the country, which was fascinating to me. I mean, I think you started at UWC, you ended with your master's at UJ, University of Johannesburg. So yeah, and somewhere along that, was the Northwest or Potchefstroom?
No, it was Stellenbosch.
Stellenbosch. Oh, okay, it was Stellenbosch. Why did I think there was another? But yeah, interesting. I looked at that and I'm like, wow, also traveling and diversity in terms of where you gathered your knowledge. That's fantastic. Yeah, thank you for that.
Yeah. So at UWC was absolutely fantastic in terms of having a focus on community development. So, human ecology was, all about community development. And then at Stellenbosch, I felt that I needed a commercial, business orientated, body of knowledge.
Yeah.
And so I did my honors at Stellenbosch, then focused on the consumer, so consumer science. And then I moved to Johannesburg, I think as most youngsters do, moved to Johannesburg to find a job. And while I was there at the Wits Business School, did the postgrad diploma in business management. And then UJ has the leadership in performance and change master's degree. And so I'm not sure which one will be the next one. It's speaking about education, it is for me very important, and we've got the opportunity. We have come through apartheid. During the apartheid years we were restricted. Now we are not restricted. Now we can really learn anything, and we've got the opportunity, especially now with all the online courses and online university and opportunities. So that is really what has enabled me, forming a good foundation. And then, of course, having opportunities then to apply that knowledge in the work that I do. So, talking about the importance of change management and leadership, it is to have a continuous quest for learning and development of yourself.
Absolutely. I can't agree with you more. I'm a perpetual student. Sometimes I irritate my family. I know at some point I was even doing 3 courses at the same time, but it was like, I can see, I've got this vision, I know where it's going. So yeah, I agree with you. Education is key. And I love the way you've kind of interwoven where you started to where you are. So it's not like it's detached from one another. There was a strong connection. So for others thinking about their career pathways, it doesn't mean that if you choose to be one particular thing today, that is where you'll stay. You need to take these opportunities to actually make them even bigger. So I totally agree with you. As a point of departure, I can't believe we've gotten to the end of our discussion, because there was so much more I wanted you to unpack about NGOs, but I think we'll have other little discussions that we could share with listeners around that. But I wanted to know if you have any tips for individuals or organizations regarding change management, culture, or leadership, because some of these things, you've said that you've seen more similarities rather than differences. So there are things that are recurring in spaces. What tips could you give leaders and individuals in these spaces?
Yes. I think the first thing that I'd like to talk about is that you need to understand that people are human beings, and that means that, that people are at different stages of change, and people have different responses to change. And I'll give you one simple example. A spreadsheet that you've been working on for the last 10 years. This spreadsheet is now 500 megabytes with all of the things that you've added to it and pivot tables and all the, you're the only one who understands the spreadsheet.
Yeah.
And now somebody comes to you and says, we don't need your spreadsheet anymore. We've got this fancy new system. You need to understand that for that individual, that is a loss. And that person will actually go through a grieving process over the loss of the spreadsheet. And they will be going through certain emotions. Yeah. And they might be thinking, are you saying you don't need me? Because I've attached so much value to my spreadsheet. It's my baby that I've nurtured over 10 years. Yeah. And now you're saying that it's useless. So are you saying that I'm useless? You know, so you need to understand that people are going through these kinds of emotions, and they might not be at a point where you are, where you're excited about the new system, the new technology, and you want to use it straight away and you want to implement it. And, you know, so you need to take people with you on the journey and not sort of steam ahead like a steam train on a track, you know, going in a completely different direction to everyone else. So that is, I would say, the main thing about change management is that understand that you are working with people that are at different stages of change, different emotions. They might not have accepted it. They might not understand the need for the change. So that is very important to really think very carefully about what is the change that you want to make, where do you want to get to, and you know, how are you going to bring everyone along on that journey? So that I would say is most important. And then the second thing is empowering people, empowering the leaders in your organization. Because they are the ones that are actually going to drive the change. Yeah. So are they empowered enough? Do they have the right tools? You know, look at your systems and processes. Do they need to change? And even in some cases, the organization design needs to change as well. So it's really thinking things through. You cannot just send an email to everyone and say,
this is changing.
As from tomorrow, this is what will, you know, people are going to start panicking, and you know, and you don't know how, you know, what might have happened with them in the past that did not triggers. So to be very, very mindful of the people that you want to bring along on the journey to change. So
that is such a powerful share, because as you're speaking, I can literally see myself in some of these on the receiving end, and possibly even not, you know, the one actually doing this to others as a leader. So really thank you for that. I also I lecture at the University of the Western Cape on a management module, and we always speak about the grieving process. And managers and leaders will look at us like, where does this fit in? And we're saying, you need to go through that process for all of these things. You might have had a vision of something that you wanted to do. It didn't happen like this. Management is telling you to do a different thing. You've invested in this. It's something else. So it is really, really actually such a topic, I think, that doesn't get discussed enough. And so it's wonderful that that is what you've brought here now. So just to say that there are of us that's speaking the same thing around, you know, this is a person with all their complexity, with everything that's happened. You don't know what their traumas are, what you're saying that might be triggering. You have no idea. And it's also about us as leaders getting to know people, because very often, I know with COVID, we have this distance in terms of virtual management, but it's how do we then utilize the same tools to actually create a bond than to think it will just keep us away from each other all the time. So thank you so much for sharing. And I think that there's going to definitely have to be some more exchange of tips so that people can learn a bit more about this. It's really, really powerful things that you're busy with. And thank you very much for the work you do.
It's an absolute pleasure. And yeah, you can talk to me at any time. You know, I really am passionate about making organizations work and really helping organizations to become successful. Because if the organization is successful, then it will successfully do what it's there to do. So so thank you very much for the opportunity.
Absolute pleasure. To those who have listened and just met Celita, please do like, share, and follow, and make sure that all the Shiros that we've had thus far are all uplifted and really their profiles are shared widely. Thank you so much.